let me show you how to remove the shear panel from your Aston Martin DB9. In this episode of Aston1936.com, we're coming to you from underneath the belly of the beast. We're underneath my DB9 because I'm going to show you how to remove the chassis shear panel. And that's this panel in the center of the car. It's not the front under tray, it's actually a chassis stiffener. So one of the great parts about a DB9 is its handling. And one of the keys to good handling in any car is a rigid chassis. You don't want the chassis to twist and turn when you're going through corners. So Aston decided they were going to fit a thick structural member covering over the transmission tunnel area to block the right side of the frame to the left side of the frame where this tunnel had been put in. So this shear panel is in place, but if you want to get in and work on something that's above the panel, you obviously have to remove it. So Aston goes to some detail to actually warn you not to remove this shear panel if the car isn't evenly supported. So obviously I'm up on a vehicle lift here, which is evenly supported. You could do this exactly the same on the floor in your garage with a set of jack stands, but what they don't want you to do is to have just two jack stands where you've just got the front lifted. Or worst case would be just using a jack, lifting one corner and sliding underneath. Well, that's putting a torsion twist into the car if you're lifting at one corner. If you imagine if you took the plate off and then the vehicle twists just a small amount and then you put the plate back on, now you're locking the twist into the car. So just do this when you're up on 4 jack stands or up on a lift, and you'll be just fine. So why would we want to remove the shear panel? Well, to get something that's above it. And in my case, I'm interested in putting in a secondary cat delete kit. So that's going to fit here, and it's going to replace these catalytic converters. And they're hidden above the shear panel. So I want to get this down so I can access the bolts and the clamps and move on with getting my delete kit installed. You only need a couple of tools to remove the shear panel. The key ones are a T30 Torx and a T40 Torx. We're going to remove 2 bolts with the T30 and 6 bolts with the T40. I've also got a 3/8 inch ratchet and a 6-inch extension. The extension's really just there so I don't wrap my knuckles across the bottom of the car while I'm taking the bolts out. You're going to see me get lazy in my future videos. I've gotten myself an electric 3/8 inch impact driver. Rather than ratcheting, you're probably going to see me wuss out, and I'm just going to, once I crack it loose with that, then I'll spin them out with that. So if you got one of those, great. Otherwise, you can just do it with the ratchet. And an inspection light's always a good item to have on hand. Let's get it out of the car here. So to get started, there's 6 big bolts, and there's 2 small bolts that are the tail end of the front aerodynamic panel. So I'm going to remove those first. And those are a T30. And even though I'm going to use the electric driver a little later, I'm always going to start by loosening bolts by hand. You want to do that so you can tell if they're stripping. If you just go at them with the electric wrench, you run the risk of just stripping them out without any clue that they were seized up. All right, so now we've got the 6 big ones to go, and that's a T40. So I'm going to change out and see if we crack these loose. Now these are a little heftier, a little more torqued up, but generally they should break loose pretty easy. And I may switch back, and I'm just going to loosen these outer 2 of this flange so that I can So you see how it overlaps the plate? And I'm just going to want a little more slack to be able to bend that down. All right, so I'm going to use the electric wrench to spin these out, but I'm going to leave the center two in because I don't want it to hit me in the head. So I'm going to leave these in while I take out the corners. All right, now I don't think this is going to be too heavy, so I'll just take one more out. Now I'm paying attention so I don't hit my head and cut myself. All right. We have a little bit of the heat shield to sneak around on this end. And then I'm just going to pull it back. All right. So on top, there are some spacers for the middle. And have a close look at what those look like. They're just an aluminum disc. So they were just sitting on top of the plate to stand off from these center areas. So that's it, the beast's out. As it turns out, there's also a couple of spacers here for the front ones. They sit above this panel, so the shear panel would come in where my finger is here. And these would be up against the chassis. So I'm going to bring that down so I don't lose it. There's one on either side. So those would sit like that. And the other ones were sitting here like that. And so now we can actually see what's up here. It's not all that exciting. There's some heat shielding because it's mainly, here's the secondary catalytic converters for the exhaust. And then right here you can see the flanges for the exhaust headers coming in where these bolt up. And what I'm also after is here's the clamp for where this whole section of this exhaust will come out. So you got to access these clamps. So shear panel out of the way. Now I can get on with doing my cat delete kits. Well, that only took, maybe 5 minutes once the car was up in the air. If you check out my next video up here, it'll probably be a link to either reinstalling the shear plate, which is a little bit tricky. We're going to do a little bit of Loctite, and we're going to tighten it in a particular pattern, and we're going to set the torques. So please check that video out when you're ready to put yours back in. Down here you'll see my companion blog article where you'll have a few more details about the process. Down here, if you like videos like this, please subscribe. And as always, I like to hear your comments. Please leave those down below. Thanks for watching.